My name is Spooky Deer, and I am on a mission to count every war crime in every Call of Duty. I've played through the first 2 games already, and now my chronological journey brings us to the 3rd entry in the series, the aptly named Call of Duty 3, which truly is one of the black sheeps of possibly the entire franchise. Now, I've been playing Call of Duty for decades, but fitting COD 3's overlooked status in the series, it's one of the few games that I've actually never played. And it turns out to require a decent amount of hoop jumping to even play in 2025. Fortunately, my fiance had an Xbox One laying around, and with the wonderful gift of backwards compatibility, all I needed to do was chase down an Xbox 360 copy of the game, since COD 3 has never been brought forward to modern consoles or on PC. I was genuinely excited to play through this game while still staying true to the criticisms, research, and analysis of this series. But before we dive into peak 2006 console gaming, I would like to quickly reissue my now standard disclaimer. I am not a legal expert, but all of the sources for the rules of war are publicly available, and I will have them linked down in the description below. Now, there is also a chance that scenes in this video or in this series at large could be upsetting, either in their in-game depiction or the real-world context that I'm comparing them to. I'd just like to make it clear that I'm never intending to undercut the severity or seriousness of the topic at hand. Now, let's count every war crime in Call of Duty 3. Call of Duty 3's campaign takes a different angle from past games in the series. Rather than taking the approach of the past 2 games, which were showing the massive global scale of World War II, it instead focuses on one part of the Allied invasion of France, told from the perspectives of a variety of soldiers and units and nationalities that were present in this slice of France at the time. The interweaving stories and action all take place during the fighting to break the Falaise Pocket, which involved a number of various Allied armies surrounding and then eventually overwhelming the German occupation force. One of the coolest things I think Call of Duty 3 does is to bring attention to more than just your typical American and British soldiers seen in the Western Front campaigns, because it also gives us a peek at the French resistance, the Free Polish Army, and, in a series first, and so far only, the appearance of the reason the Geneva Convention exists at all: the Canadians. Kicking the game off, we skip all of the dramatics of a D-Day landing and are instead thrown into a very in-progress Allied invasion of France. We're given a quick TLDR history lesson on the Nazi occupation of France and establish the context that COD 3 is fully focused on the Allied breakout and their attempts to liberate Paris. After the intro, we are served a very dubious splash screen introducing the Battle for Saint-Lô, France as the bloodiest battle of the war. Now, while Saint-Lô was certainly critical to the success of Allies fighting on the Western Front, we have already seen a lot of Stalingrad in our past 2 episodes in this series, and actually, that was by far the bloodiest battle of an incredibly bloody war. Our gameplay tutorial starts at an American staging ground where we're introduced to some of the key squad mates for the American campaign, who, you can tell they're important because one of them doesn't wear his helmet.
Come get your gun. I got $5 says you can't hit 4 in a row.
Our beanie-wearing buddy, Huxley, instantly triggered a fit of nostalgic rage in me. I know that other 2000s-era gamers will recognize that voice from somewhere. And that's right. You're looking at Eric Sparrow from Tony Hawk's Underground, who, to this day, is the single biggest and most annoying villain in video game history.
Remember? Hawaii, building jump, helicopter? That was some sick footage. Too bad no one ever saw it.
Anyways, we shoot some helmets, throw some grenades, remain fully annoyed by Huxley, and eventually hop onto a truck to pop an Xbox achievement and meet our Sergeant Gunny McCullen, who is stereotypically crusty.
You're no good to me dead.
The tutorial then goes on to do a cool thing like Call of Duty 2, where we transition from learning the ropes to immediately getting thrown into a forward assault. I'm super impressed by the scale and number of soldiers running around on what was still a very early Xbox 360 game. This guy named Ferris Bueller tries to hop on board our truck and then almost immediately takes an artillery hit so directly that it's either cosmic bad luck or a very intentionally aimed shot from an 88mm cannon. But this is a war crime video, so we're going to call it intentional and, therefore, causing disproportionate, superfluous, and unnecessary suffering, which gets us our first tally on the board. Our truck then loses control and rolls us into the classic Call of Duty trope of getting knocked out and dragged by our buddies. We clear our head and start our attack through a church cemetery. Much like the first Call of Duty, you can see a German machine gun nest up in the bell tower of the church, which is a war crime because religious structures should not be taken for military use. And then, just as we clamber over the wall, the cemetery gets shelled by artillery, which, desecrating a burial site, is also a war crime. The way we're dumped into combat makes this one of the most chaotic intros we've had in a Call of Duty game so far. You go from 0 to 100 so fast, and I had a really hard time getting my bearings at first. The city is just demolished. Houses are more like rat tunnels built from wreckage and garbage than places where people used to live. We see a group of our guys lob grenades into a French house, but it is clearly marked as being occupied by bad guys, meaning that there is no real risk of civilians being inside. Somehow, the grenades light the Germans on the second floor on fire, which that is insane, but I can't count it as a war crime because there were no incendiary weapons purposely employed in the killing of these specific guys. We step into another room, and then we get 2006'd so hard by a QuickTime event where we have to struggle in hand-to-hand combat with a German soldier. Where are our allies that were just with us during this scene? Why is no one helping us while I give myself carpal tunnel mashing my controller?
German son of a bitch.
I did overkill him just because that was an annoying jump scare, and it's reminding me that Call of Duty World War II tried to bring QuickTime events back 11 years later.
I got it.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. We regroup with our squad, and then we hop onto the back of a tank to tell them where to throw their cannon fire at the Germans. Luckily, they all hung huge Nazi flags out of the windows of their positions, so we know that we're blowing up German-occupied buildings. However, we do return to the age-old issue of big gun versus
small man.
So, in keeping with consistency with this series, watch this counter go up. Pause. Hey everybody, post-production and freshly married Spooky Deer here, dropping in a quick cutaway to address some very good feedback that we've gotten on the series so far. I've got to say, first thing, I am very grateful that this series found some legs while I was both dealing with some family emergencies and planning my wedding, so I've tried to read as many of your comments as possible. And one of the main and valid bits of feedback dealt with how I've been kind of splitting hairs with the use of tank cannons, anti-air guns, artillery, and other big guns being used against infantry. Now, for the record, I fully understand that all of this is not just permissible to use in an anti-personnel function, but also often necessary. Just being a little cheeky in these first videos and counting certain uses under a pretty nebulous interpretation of what constitutes proportionality, because if you think for too long about the consequences of what these weapons do to people for too long, well, it's pretty awful. And while I do feel like I address all of that pretty well in Call of Duty 1's video, I can definitely get on board with the feedback that counting stuff that isn't in actual violation to any rules of war kind of undercuts the main point of what we're doing here. I'm glad to know that the videos are still interesting and engaging without the number just getting bigger unnecessarily. And with all that being said, we were just too far into and too far behind on the production of this video to incorporate all that feedback. So just soldier on with us and anticipate it being reflected in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. I appreciate all the comments and good faith discussion, and might even occasionally put together a responding to the comments series just so that I can have more runtime to address our approach to certain things. Thank you all so much for your understanding and for watching. Let's turn it back to Past Spooky. We then for some reason have to also order our tank to engage with an enemy tank, and I felt like that was weird. Like, they should know just to do that, right? We then get hit by a mortar so hard that we're thrown from the tank into the basement of a house and are then pulled into a really awkward cutscene where we're pinned down, and then Sergeant McCullen threatens to shoot the new radio guy for some reason, despite our just adding him to the squad.
Desertion's a capital offense, Guzzo. Shooting you won't be crazy. It'll be the sanest thing I've ever done.
Now, execution for desertion is one of those things that did happen in World War II, but the sergeant here would be doing that in like an extrajudicial fashion, which that's murder. That's just murder. I can't call it a war crime, but I will call it an annoying plot beat. Eric Sparrow then finds us an escape route, popping us inside a German strongpoint. We clear that and take the building over, and the game fakes us out with a fade to black that is then interrupted by a German counterattack.
Check your ammo levels.
We spent a long time playing Duck Hunt and holding the house, but like, there's an enemy tank parked right in front of us, and it doesn't immediately kill us. It's all very weird, and in the meantime, we kill so many Germans until that tank spontaneously combusts. And then the first mission actually ends with the satisfying sound of an achievement pop. We get a little more information about where the other levels in this campaign are going to be taking place, and then we're also introduced to the history of the Falaise Gap. We're then thrown into another very abrupt combat sequence at a river crossing, but this time, it's raining. We do get pinned down by machine gun fire almost instantly, and then we're given some dialogue that tough guy, I shoot my own men McCullen might be cracking under the pressure. While trying to push up with the tank, I begin to realize a frustration with Call of Duty 3's gameplay. They love putting the whole freaking gun in front of your face when you're trying to reload or cycle the bolt, and it's just so disorienting because the game is also just sending huge waves of dumb enemy AI at you. We follow our tank around the hedgerows, and it decides to blow up a windmill for zero reason, which, destroying civilian infrastructure, is a war crime. And then the tank throws a shell into the occupied farmhouse twice, before then being abruptly blown up itself. While clearing the farmhouse, the realization dawned on me that Eric Sparrow's standard issue weapon is apparently a shotgun.
He has a shotgun. Oh my god, he has a shotgun. Are we going to call that war crimes? He's not Canadian.
For those unfamiliar, shotguns are a pretty controversial weapon in warfare, and while their use isn't explicitly against the Geneva Convention, because that doesn't actually ban types of weapons, only the way in which they're employed. However, it was American and Canadian use of shotguns in the German trenches of World War I that raised concerns both about their effectiveness and their potential to cause suffering with how buckshot can tear up a target, especially in conflicts like World War I and World War II, where body armor wasn't commonly being used. So, to honor the controversial history, I'm going to mark any shotgun kills as war crimes for the remainder of this video. Also, if you're wondering if a shotgun would be a standard issue weapon for a US Army infantryman in the European theater in World War II, no. Shotguns were used in the European theater, but not commonly, and definitely not in replacement of a typical rifle. Shotguns were much more common in the Pacific for their usefulness in close quarters and jungle combat. So, stay tuned for our upcoming World at War episode for more on that. Now, back to my other microphone. We clear the barn, and then Call of Duty 3 introduces a nice gameplay element that I enjoyed, which is minor branching paths or open-ended objectives in the missions. While they typically only boil down to go right or go left, at least it does open up some replayability. I always go left when given the option, so we work our way through a ravine. We keep moving through the hedgerows and fields, clearing out pockets of soldiers and anti-tank guns. Shockingly, after the two prior games, we'll never get behind the barrel of an 88 cannon in Call of Duty 3, which greatly spares our war crime count. We run forward to clear the gun emplacement and then get caught in the open by an enemy tank. We get knocked out and, you guessed it,
you're never gonna keep me down,
dragged by our allies out of the line of fire. A friendly tank in turn then saves us, and we go back to clearing houses. We move through the last German trenches and clear out a large bunker filled with machine gun emplacements. We clear the last 88 on the roof, pop another achievement, and we keep rolling forward. We're next introduced to the major players in the British SAS campaign. The British missions all involve dropping into the French countryside and working with the French resistance. So, naturally, we need to play up that rivalry by immediately and consistently shit-talking the French over and over again.
Only two things the Frenchies are any good at. Surrendering and kissing.
This isn't any old parachute mission though, because not only are we airdropping soldiers in, but also machine gun laden jeeps, which I was convinced was not a thing, but upon further research, the SAS had actually been using these jeep configurations since the North African campaign to brutal effect. That all being said, COD 3 does fudge reality a little bit, since the super armed jeeps that we'll use in the campaign were way too heavy to effectively or safely airdrop. But the rule of cool needs to win out sometimes for the sake of better action and gameplay, so I'll let it go. Our mission abruptly starts just as abruptly as our solo plane gets shot to pieces, dropping the jeeps and a couple dudes before exploding in midair. We regain control mid-parachute and then slam into a tree in the forest, continuing the trend of getting hit in the head so that we can't do anything else, and then we watch as a German soldier rolls up on another SAS member who crash-landed and immediately executes him. This is a war crime because our guy wasn't speaking or fighting back, and that means he was likely unconscious and defenseless when he was killed. The German then turns to us, and right before he can approach and pull the trigger, he's sniped from the woods by a member of the French resistance.
Only two things the Frenchies are any good at. Surrendering.
Welcome to France, mon ami.
We walk literally 15 feet forward into a barn that is full of other SAS members and the French resistance cracking jokes about the German soldiers that they killed.
A wee member of the welcoming committee.
And I'm thinking, but why didn't you help me and Billy back out there? But whatever. The overriding concern is more focused on our Jeep Vera, so we set out into the countryside to find our ride. We sneak up on a Nazi pissing tea kettle hot piss, and we smack his ass so hard that he front flips over a bush. Almost immediately after that, we decide that sneaking is overrated, and we break out into full-blown firefights with the German garrison at a farmhouse. We work our way through without issue until I find myself a fully loaded shotgun up in the attic. Shotgun in hand, I clear out the remaining Germans at the farm. Our lost Jeep is beautifully parallel parked behind the farmhouses and has not one, but two double-barreled anti-aircraft style machine guns mounted to it. And it's with this discovery of Vera that I quickly realized just how vehicle-centric Call of Duty 3 wants to be. As the sort of cool open-ended mission design also opens up to larger maps that require me to drive this sluggish Jeep around it. This is something that I think Treyarch will do to much better effect in Black Ops 6, but we are a long ways away from that. We get a brief lesson in where the gas and brake pedals are, and then we start ripping through the sleepy French roads. We're met by two German guards at the gates, and my gunners lay into them with the mounted machine gun. Now, in past episodes, I have leaned in the direction of saying that weapons with specific anti-vehicle purposes being turned against infantry yields a measurable war crime violation, extending beyond rules about proportional use of force and causing excessive damage and suffering. While it's certainly a gray area when you consider actual combat, we can look at these games through 2020 hindsight and a more critical lens because war equals bad. However, I was very conflicted about how I approached the use of these mounted machine guns. The double Vickers K guns mounted to these Jeeps are chambered in a standard British .303 round. It's the same bullet used in their bolt-action anti-personnel Lee Enfield rifles. But the Vickers guns themselves have an insane fire rate, and they were originally intended for use in and against aircraft before being outpaced by other technological advancements. All the Vickers K guns were then repurposed for use on and against vehicles and aircraft, and in previous SAS deployments of these Jeeps specifically, they were taken through airfields in North Africa to destroy grounded Luftwaffe planes. So, while it is still a gray area even in my mind, I am going to declare these weapons' use against foot soldiers as bad, and I will assign war crimes as they roll. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. We awkwardly smash through the gate and start trying to do drive-bys on Germans everywhere. We blow up vehicles and checkpoints, which is all well and good, but I do also run down a few guys that leap into the road in front of me, which, running a man over with a truck is definitely going to cause more suffering than necessary. We hit a sick jump at about 15 miles per hour, which somehow nets us an achievement, slam through a barn, and then we hit another guy on the other side with our Jeep. After poorly jumping one more gap, we connect with some more French resistance members that we decide to be immediately hostile towards for no reason.
You are late.
Nice to see you too, lady.
Dufontaine. Isabelle Dufontaine.
I don't care if you're the friggin' Queen of France. Where's the major?
As it turns out, our other squad of SAS is still missing, as well as a key member of the French resistance. Naturally, with our main character energy, it's up to us to find and save them. We get another branching path on what to do first, so I decide to find Marcel the Shell, who I figured would be held in the French manor house. We can't enter through the JPEG door, so instead we get a boost into an open window right into another QuickTime event, but we quickly shrug off the German and explode his bratwurst with a home run swing to the nuts before re-equipping our shotgun and doom-guying our way through the rest of the guys in the house. With the second story cleared, I turned a corner and realized that the Germans had been hanging out in a room with the burning engine of the plane we flew in on. Weird. We jump through the broken floor and find more Germans just hanging out who were presumably listening to muffled doom music and shotgun blasts upstairs. I continue my room clearing. We go into the wine cellar and find Marcel the Shell unharmed, but armed and dangerous, which raises some suspicion for some reason.
No, sorry, I'm a real war person. Actually, I sign all my personal letters, war. Let the battle begin, Marcel.
What the bloody hell's going on here?
Later.
I don't know. The manufactured tension between the British and the French is just really annoying to me. We leave the wine cellar and kill some more Germans before leaping into a trench system to find and destroy the anti-air guns that took us out of the sky in the first place. We clear the gun crews and place explosives on the 88mm via a QuickTime event that we will see 200 more times throughout the course of this game. Clearing the trenches, I end up finding more shotgun ammo, which, that means you know what happens next. We destroy the last of the guns and circle back to our Jeeps. Major Ingram has gotten himself unlost, but he has a legion of Germans chasing behind him, so it's time to get back behind the wheel of the Jeep to head to the resistance base, which is apparently 23 feet away from where we're parked. We hit a sick jump just as the Nazis roll in, where one of our allies then gets hit by a semi-truck. We have to cut through the backwoods to avoid all the enemies, but we keep running into more and more regardless. Flying out of the woods, we end up in a rail yard where we try to outrace a tank and its cannon while it blasts away at us. We skate across the dilapidated bridge that collapses behind us, only to get stuck.
If it reloads...
After that supremely awkward and lucky escape, we decide to continue to work with Marcel the Shell and to continue being rude and distrusting for zero believable reason.
Marcel is one of our most trusted men, Corporal.
That's not saying much.
Especially by this point in the war, British opinion of the French resistance was way more than favorable. The recognition of the resistance's contributions was well known both from an intelligence gathering perspective as well as how disruptive they were to the German war effort. There's just no reason to distrust or disrespect these people who are fighting for the liberation of their country. It's the same way the British fought and resisted all throughout the Blitz. I'm gonna stop harping on it because they aren't gonna stop with the contrived tension, but gah! Our next mission sees us back in American boots as we move to secure some bridges in a town that the Germans have wired with bombs to destroy them should the Allies get close to crossing. Eric Sparrow is our trusted guy for some reason to be the one to disarm everything.
Whose brilliant plan was this?
We hop off our tank and over a wall and start moving through the town to secure the bridges. After clearing a few houses, we move into a literal castle, which really helps make it feel like we haven't left Medal of Honor's DNA fully behind yet. Move up across the moat, and I do shoot a wounded German. And then we quickly clear the castle entrance and move into the central courtyard, fighting so many more Germans with just such disappointingly small weapon variety. From the courtyard, we then go down into not just a wine cellar, but a full-blown wine-making operation, which we also clear without much trouble. Stepping out to the back of the castle, we get ambushed in a smaller ruined courtyard. After fighting through that, air raid sirens begin to sound just as we enter the village itself. Our way to the bridge is blocked, so we have to steal a rowboat to cross the river. Rowboats were used for crossings like this in a number of situations in the European theater of war, and I am just in awe that anyone ever survived rowing a wooden boat across a river while under fire. Getting everyone into the boat in this game is super glitchy and jarring, but once everyone's settled in, we start rowing in the only way 2006 knew how, via QuickTime event. While we work our way across the river, another boat full of our guys gets hit by a direct artillery shot, seemingly just to put some fear in us. Mercifully, we get a gun back on our hands before too long and start clearing out the enemies from the other side of the river. Sergeant McCullen, who is now fully cracking under the pressure, suddenly appears and helpfully says that we gotta do something.
Something. Oh, this is bad. We've gotta...
I get a perfect window angle on some of the German artillery and cook a grenade toss so perfectly that it explodes right at dome height, eliminating the entire crew. It's not a war crime, it's just cool. As I move back into the street, a Tiger tank births itself out of a 3-story apartment like Ace Ventura did out of that rhino's ass.
I haven't seen this before, so I figured I should check it out before I put it on the video.
The mother rhino is giving birth.
Oh, that's great. We can't use this. We can't.
We cover Huxley while he plants dynamite on the tank, which just sits there with no awareness of what's going on. It blows up, and then we came here to do something. We're here for a reason. Yes, the bridge. We're here for the bridge. As we work our way out of the last house, Huxley gets shot in the knee, so no more kickflips or McTwists for him, but that also means that someone else needs to be able to disarm the bombs on the bridge. Luckily, McCullen decides that he can lock in and do it himself, so we provide cover while he disarms the bombs. We fight off waves of Germans from improbable directions for an improbable amount of time, and then play leapfrog across the machine gun nests to keep our crusty crab covered. Somehow, none of the bombs catch a stray bullet, and we are able to disarm all of them before artillery starts falling around the bridge. McCullen gets separated during the artillery barrage and apparently riddled with shrapnel. He grimaces and groans as he crawls to the last bomb and disarms it. McCullen dies, but he tells Radio Man Guzzo to suck it before he does.
Tell him to go to hell.
Everyone in this game has so much beef with the most random fucking people for no reason. It's weird. It's weird.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Okay, based on the next cutscene that plays, I'm going to ask you all to guess what country you think is represented here.
How much longer are we gonna be here anyway?
At least until your crappy playing gives away our position. We are about to take part in a most daring offensive against the enemy. Glory.
If you guessed C for Canadians, you'd be right. Great job. Please remember to ring the bell to claim your prize of being subscribed to my YouTube channel. Anyways, Lieutenant Robichaud is gung-ho and ready to go, so we hop up on a 50 cal mounted on a tank and roll into our next mission.
The Germans have pulled back to the ridge. We, mes amis, are going to take it from them.
Our lead tank gets blown up from something, and confusingly, there are a lot of Germans running in parallel to our tank. I had no idea why we'd all be moving in the same direction, so I was really hesitant to shoot it first. This entire sequence has the energy and urgency of the Disneyland Buzz Lightyear ride, being a slow-moving, overstimulating shooting gallery. Eventually, all of our tanks get stuck or destroyed, so we end up back on foot to secure this village. Thankfully, we are finally given some semblance of weapon variety with the introduction of the Bren gun. We smash through the first line of German defense and we find a truck blocking our path that we blow out of the way with some dynamite. Our next objectives are COD classics. Eliminate the mortar and artillery teams. After a brief uphill battle, we mop the floor with the crews.
Ah, Baron, we missed you. Have a good nap, did we?
But Sir, I was manning the radio
You
and
should have been manning a gun. They won't go quietly into that good night. Nor should you, Baron.
Oh, good. More manufactured beef. Anyways, we rush into an industrial area that needs the Nazis cleaned out of it. We run clockwise around the area and clear out the Germans, leaving the central building for last. As we approach the door, our allies end up bugging out and we wait for a excruciatingly long time. It's not until I stand in the exact pixel that they move to actually get into the building.
Stand back.
After securing that building, the Germans stage a massive counterattack that we need to defend against. To make it easier for ourselves, we rush to block off some of the entrances to the area in order to funnel the Germans down to one road so it's easier to kill them. We do a quick time event to place a bomb to close an alley. We then do a quick time event to use a crane to make a roadblock. And then we do a quick time event to create a wall of gasoline fire. With the gaps closed, we rush back to the central point to fight off the remaining Germans. This goes on for quite some time, and you'll notice, perhaps with some disappointment, that the Canadians are not committing any war crimes. Eventually, some more Tiger tanks roll in and we set dynamite on them via, you guessed it, the same QuickTime event. With the dynamite planted, we awkwardly fade into a loading screen and then into a cutscene declaring that we succeeded in our mission.
South on the Falaise Road, forcing the Germans to fall back towards Falaise.
We're briefly introduced to our cast of characters in the Free Polish Army who, thankfully, all seem to get along well with each other.
Plan to work. Cooperation must be perfect, like ballet.
Now, you'd think this means that it's time to get tanked. No, not yet. No. Not yet. We actually swoop back over to the British troops and take control of the SAS again. Our goal is to attack a German fuel depot with the help of the resistance. So, after some slightly more playful jabs...
Votre mère a syphilis, mon ami.
Your mother has syphilis, my friend.
Good luck to you too, Frenchy.
We get our boots back on the ground and into the action. We snipe the guard in the tower and move into the depot, trying to get one of the Frenchmen roof access so he can provide sniper cover for us. We get to use another new weapon in the British bolt-action Lee Enfield, which honestly is just trash. Poop from a butt to use in Call of Duty 3 versus Call of Duty 2. Regardless, we work through the train yard without much issue and chase the Germans back into one of their warehouses. I then proceed to put my entire nutsack over a grenade and I get game over, and then reload into that same grenade getting thrown at me. This time I try to pick it up and throw it back, but for some ungodly reason, COD 3 requires 2 different button inputs to throw grenades back. So I cosplay as a 4th of July fireworks victim and reload again. This time I move much more aggressively so that I can stop getting soft locked by grenade deaths. We get up and through the second story office, and our Frenchman moves even higher up to cover our continued assault. We get behind the Vickers guns ourselves this time, and after 2+ hours of gameplay being war crime free, we start stacking up the count kind of against our will. The muzzle flash is insane on these guns, so I think my counting might be a little spotty. Let me know in the comments down below if I missed any. We get run off the road and are immediately back on our feet with more bombs in hand to sabotage the fuel depot. We climb up the first tank, and despite being told that the bombs were primed and ready, we still have to do the same QuickTime event. We quickly move to the next fuel tank to plant another explosive, and after completing our QuickTime event, and despite our allies being fully inside of us, we get ambushed by a German soldier and tossed into another QuickTime event. We wrestle with him, and with fear in his eyes, we toss him over the edge of the fuel tank where he lands with 0 sound effects. He tried to pull us over the edge, but plot armor glues our hands to the railing. We pull ourselves up with 0 help, while our allies nag us asking, "What are you waiting for?" I don't know, man. I was waiting for some fucking help while you were right there. We shift next into a coal-burning area in our gasoline refinery and shoot all the Germans through the haze. We then link back up with Marcel the Shell and Isabel and pop ourselves behind the wheel of a stolen German staff car. In a Diet Halo 2 escape from the exploding base, we run over 8 retreating German soldiers with that car. As we drive away, I'm left wondering how just everything is exploding so catastrophically since we only planted like 3 bombs, but that's okay. We hit another sick jump as we watch Major Ingram and a Frenchman run off the road and roll their car into a ditch. Duncan insists on going back to rescue them despite Marcel the Shell's protests.
Get your hand off me, you French idiot, or I'll shoot you myself.
The weird tension is back between the British and the French as they argue about whether Major Ingram is rescuable or not.
Damn straight I think you're... Your major is dead.
We turn from their bickering and back to the Polish tank crew, and now, my friends, it is finally time to get tanked. We get behind the sticks of a Sherman tank with our main objective apparently being to hunt down some German tank commander called the Black Baron. It's a bitchin' nickname, but they haven't really established the stakes super well, but sure, we'll hunt down this guy and kill him. But before we do that, we are going to end up swinging our big gun onto a bunch of small men. Thankfully, in a series first, they do give me control over the coaxial machine gun in the tank, so I do my best to avoid smacking infantry around with the heavy cannon as much as possible so we can keep the war crime count from getting artificially inflated. We roll through the French farmland and fight a ton of German tanks, but still don't get eyes on our villainous tank commander until we catch him in his Tiger tank sneaking over a hill, trying to lure us in for a fight. We knock out the 2 tanks the Baron left behind as distraction, and we move in closer to the village. No sooner do I stop moving, and 7 German soldiers with bazookas start running at us from every angle. We quickly kill all of them and keep moving after our main target. We round a corner and spot his Tiger tank, and suddenly 3 Allied aircraft swoop in and fire a ton of rockets in his general direction, but most of them miss and hit the surrounding French homes instead, allowing the tank to scoot away from us yet again. We give chase, but we get interrupted by more infantry and more tanks. We wind our way into a church courtyard and get jumped by an enemy tank parked in the cemetery, sitting on top of crumbled headstones. We've had this issue come up in 3 Call of Duties in a row now. Desecrating burial grounds is a war crime. After blowing up some German foot soldiers in the same graveyard, we turn back to the task of outmaneuvering the Baron. We careen through a barn to get behind the Tiger tank, and while we lob shell after shell into his fuel tanks, the rocket planes come back and fire more barrages with significantly better accuracy this time. 7 shots later, the Black Baron's tank explodes so hard that the turret blows off the top of the tank, surely killing him and the entire crew, and leaving us victorious. Our entire team hops out of our tank and starts Fortnite emoting on the burning wreckage before we fade back to the Americans, who are now being led by Dixon through a forest to find and rescue some army engineers that have gone missing who were supposed to be clearing minefields out of the woods. Let's use this as an opportunity to again say that anti-personnel mines are very bad, and the world would be better off without them. Anyways, sniper rifle in hand, we set off into the woods to find the missing engineers. We very quickly find a completely destroyed American convoy, clearly brutally ambushed. We find a group of hiding American troops and very quickly end up back in open combat with more German units. We seriously wound one German soldier only for him to get shot again by our allies, which, as we know all too well from Call of Duty 2, that's a war crime. We push further into the woods and through just so many enemy soldiers. Eventually, Huxley finds one of the landmine removing engineers who's wounded but alive, unlike the rest of his squad. We set out to find and remove the Germans hiding in a supply depot, and I find a conveniently placed shotgun and lock and load ready to avenge our fallen engineers. Perhaps even more convenient than the shotgun is the German supply depot being set up in a series of trenches. It's like this entire scenario was made just to serve the namesake of the shotgun in my hands. We clear a large portion of the trenches and quick time event a bomb into a pile of ammunition dug into a hillside. Foolishly, I thought to myself, I wonder what this explosion will look like up close. The ensuing explosion was so large that I stopped seeing color for a second, but was also somehow otherwise unscathed. There's a second ammo dump to blow up, so we quick time event that into smithereens as well before continuing through the trench line. There's a third mound built into the hill, so we move to that next, relying on an NPC to kick down the ramshackle door for us. That door opens to a network of tunnels connecting German barracks to the supplies, so you know we have to clear that out next and just brutal close quarters fighting, which just remains so perfect for our shotgun. We emerge from a now messily cleared bunker back into a different forest trench system, where I am quickly forced to again just personally kill so many men so that we can move forward. We pop smoke to run from our captured trench system across the road where their convoy was ambushed to get to the next chunk of German positions, where we encounter another heavily defended bunker that I have to take point on clearing out. This time I snag an MP40 to make the close quarters killing move faster and almost immediately overkill a dying German, which is just a big no-no because overkill very quickly stops being a double tap in combat and turns into intentional mutilation of a body. In this last bunker, we encounter a very overstaffed mortar team that we quickly unemploy. Looking over the edge of the trench, we can see that the Germans have piled wreckage in the road to prevent our convoys from moving forward. Since all of our engineers are out of this game, it's up to us to think of a bright idea on how to move the wreckage out of the way. So, we decide to grab that German mortar and start lobbing shells into the wreckage to both clear it and beat back a counterattack. This is a stupid idea at best, made all the more silly because the tutorial only tells you 50% of the controls. So I spent a ton of time lobbing shells at the roadblock, not realizing that I could also adjust the pitch of the mortar using the other analog stick. It takes me a long time to get the mortar dialed in on the 3 wrecked vehicles, and it's made all the more difficult by my allies trying to load themselves into the mortar as well. All in all, super janky sequence that I eventually work my way through. This mission takes a long time to fade to black, but we're on to the next. Back in Canadian boots, we are tasked with crossing a river under heavy fire and nauseating screen shake. We quickly move up and into the woods where I briefly stop in a grenade-exploded outhouse to snipe the enemy troops. We make it into a sawmill where Robichaud admonishes our radio guy for just doing his job.
I need you to fire your weapon from time to time. Get into the fight, soldier.
But I didn't want to risk the radio getting
Your
hit.
concern for His Majesty's kid is very admirable, but don't let it burden you all the way out of the war, private.
And then we push up to start clearing more houses full of Germans. Now, if I were a game dev, this is the time where I'd have finally gotten a shotgun into Canadian hands since the British and Americans have had their fun. I am let down very much in that regard. However, we quickly clear out the house, and while I'm firing on Germans in this backyard, one of my allies sticks his face in front of my actively firing weapon. This is an instance of friendly fire, which, unfortunately, does happen in war. But this was not intentional on my part, and while very unfortunate, very gross, This is not a war crime, or even a crime in this instance. With that house cleared, we split the gang up to call for reinforcements, and a smaller group of us charge ahead to try and defend our convoy, which is still under attack. We run ahead under artillery fire and end up conveniently behind an 88 gun pit that's lobbing shells into our vehicles. We do another plant a bomb quicktime event. Look at those low resolution textures. And then we move up the trench line under a disgusting amount of machine gun fire to do more quicktime events. Moving up to the next gun and inevitable quicktime event, I find myself sorely missing the bullet penetration mechanics that weren't even developed until later Call of Duty games, as I try to kill a German hiding behind 3 empty wooden boxes. With all of our rapid button press sequences out of our system, we move up to get the high ground and do a tried and true favorite objective: getting rid of a mortar team. Now, something that Call of Duty 3 does really well, which almost sometimes makes up for how brutally generic it has been, is just throwing an almost unrealistic amount of enemies at you the entire game. Sometimes I round a corner and I have to just hold the triggers down on my controller and hope that everyone downrange is dead before I have to reload. The enemies aren't smart and they aren't strong, but the volume of them is kind of cool and wild sometimes. With the mortar pits emptied and the mechanic of using a mortar having recently been introduced, we grab that tube and... Pause. With the mortar pit emptied, we wrap both hands around that tube and we start lobbing mortars into a bunch of dudes in parked vehicles. It's, again, very annoying and awkward to control. Real mortarmen are doing so much math to ensure that the bombs they throw are landing exactly where they want them to. I am instead taking the monkey with a typewriter approach, and I didn't even realize until this edit that the vehicles I'm supposed to hit to progress the game along are marked with little flares. After an eternity, the German motor pool is just flaming wreckage, and Lieutenant Robichaud gives us uppies over the wall so we can go down and fight the Germans in the parking lot that managed to not starve to death waiting for me to complete that mortar minigame. Further up the road, there's more Germans to fight before mercifully just clearing the gun crew instead of doing another QTE. Unmercifully, we are victim to another awkward cutscene before we get our achievement points and move on to the next mission. Now, you might have noticed that it's been a hot minute since the war crime counter has gone up in this video, and that's just because Call of Duty 3 really isn't doing a whole lot of anything. I don't think that Call of Duty needs war crimes to be interesting, but it is interesting, especially as we move deeper into the franchise, to see just how much the set pieces ramp up, and how often those set pieces end up encapsulating severe violations of the rules of war. We're shown a brief cutscene of our Polish tank crew talking about their next mission to take a large hill. We won't get to see or play that. And then, weirdly for some reason, our perspective switches to a cutscene of panicked Germans in a ruined village radioing for help, I think? Any German speakers who want to translate, please do. Then one gets sniped by an American soldier as we fade back into control of the USA, screaming and charging up a street through a bunch of artillery. Our squad hides in the basement while seemingly the rest of the entire American army just runs directly into all of the explosions. In the basement, we talk about how the bombs falling all around us is actually American artillery, and that was miscalculated, meant to support the assault on this city, but instead falling short and tearing us up.
Yeah, they don't call it friendly fire for nothing.
This is probably the most common example of friendly fire, and it seems terrifying. I'm actually really glad that Call of Duty 3 depicted it. Our bombs stop falling, so we leave the basement and continue to fight through the city. It should go without saying, but the city is completely thrashed, bombed and burned beyond any functionality. While it mostly serves as corridors for our first-person shooting action, it's good to take a step back and remember that the normal people lived in these houses and were either evicted or killed by the ensuing fighting, and that is horrific. We run through the empty streets with our full squad, who naturally fail to support us at all when a lone German leaps from behind a corner to trigger a quicktime event. He tries to stab us, and we do nothing to try and get the admittedly dull-looking knife out of his hands. We clobber him, yoink the pin on a grenade on his chest rig, and then shove him back through a window where he falls out of sight and then gets turned into soup. I so badly want to count this as a war crime because it's gross and ridiculous to the point of almost being cruel, but nothing wrong was actually done. The only people who should feel any shame about all of this are our teammates who sat 30 feet away and just watched all of it happen. We clear a house and Dixon gets sniped, but lives.
Damn it! Stupid Stupid, careless son of a bitch.
And we defend the position until a medic can arrive to help him. He recovers almost as fast as we do, and we carry on forward and decide to jump into the sewers, which is definitely a great place for Dixon's fresh bullet wound. We stay in the sewers for 10 seconds before finding a hole in the wall to a wine cellar full of Germans. We get upstairs and then have 3 choices on how to proceed, but before we can pick our path, an entire German fighter plane crashes through the house, slicing through the wall like a knife before it gets stuck. We destroy some German gun emplacements and shoot a grenade at the wall to make a path forward. Weirdly, there's a burning Jeep in the basement of this house, but we're just gonna yada yada past that and get back into the sewers to flush some Nazis. Back above ground, we make a stand in a wrecked pub and shoot just so many guys while the Germans park a tank in front of our position. It could kill us at any time, but it just hangs out until the Air Force and American tanks roll in and push the German remnants out of the city. We get an update from our command that the French and Polish have made huge strides in capturing German territory, but naturally, despite our insane losses, we are tasked with taking the town of Chambois. The Americans all kick rocks in frustration, and we fade back to the British, who are plotting to rescue Major Ingram from captivity, which I just realized that the Major Ingram in this game is the same guy we rescued from that liminal weird POW camp back in Call of Duty 1.
Yanks! Now there's a spot of luck. Come to collect me, have you?
There's just something about the British in these early Call of Duties that love getting ambushed and captured over and over and over again. Anyways, it's our job to fix things, so we take our war crime Jeep and fly into the town square of a small French village just before Nazis are about to firing squad a bunch of unarmed prisoners. Executing prisoners is obviously a massive war crime. These men were unarmed, unable to defend themselves, and 100% not being given any sort of trial. That being said and counted, I do also in turn blast a bunch of Germans with these Vickers guns. After gunning down the Germans ourselves, we get behind the wheel of our crime Jeep and start wandering the larger area to find Major Ingram. Super embarrassingly, I cannot figure out how to get out of this courtyard for just an abysmally long time.
What do you want from me, Call of Duty 3? Huh? What do you want from me? You don't want me to drive through here. What do you want? What? Where am I going? I have to drive? What? Oh, take the wheel, Doyle. Oh, okay. Do I push this out of the way? What? It won't let me drive through here. Okay. There's nowhere to go. There isn't a way through here. Is it supposed to be the way through? That's a physics-driven object.
I ended up taking so long to find the way out that I thought I soft-locked myself, and I just ended up restarting the mission.
I'm gonna have to restart this level. This is so stupid. I'm aghast. Let's try that again.
Turns out, I just never drove on the correct road to leave the area.
Is it up this way? Oh my god. So I just had to leave that area entirely. I'm very stupid.
Now, finally on the correct path, I choke down my shame and we get back on track to finding our beloved Major. We finally get to the first house to search, and the game has already given us a shotgun. This level will cement the Brits as the undisputed war crime committers for 3 games in a row. I rack the shotgun and enter the mansion. Major Ingram isn't in the house, so we'll need to continue our search outside. We continue to look for Ingram in both a wine barn and then its wine basement. There's a really fun effect where the bullets knock holes in the casks, which then spill wine everywhere like a cartoon. But it's kind of hard to take the time to look at that when the shotgun-based violence is obscuring our view. This wine cellar is massive, but as we reach the back of it over the bodies of so many Nazis and so much spilled wine, we hear Major Ingram repeating his name and serial number from behind a closed door.
Serial number 458.
We breach in and find Ingram tied to a chair, head hung low, and a Nazi officer mid-swing on beating him with the butt of his gun. We talked about this in Call of Duty 1 and in Call of Duty 2, but let me tap the sign. Torturing prisoners of war is bad. Prisoners of war are given protections from this kind of treatment, but for all the good it seems to do in media and in real life. We dome that Nazi officer, set Ingram free, and then start working our way back above ground. Marcel the Shell gets possibly the funniest kill in this game on the stairwell.
The French is clearing the way. Come on.
And while we're walking up, Ingram tells us about 3 more French resistance members who are being held in the area and also tortured. So we make it our mission to find and save them if possible as well, which annoyingly means more driving around and blasting Germans in the countryside. We roll up on the first house, clear the yard, and then march through the open back door to find our guy. While clearing the house, I brilliantly decide to throw grenades all over inside despite trying to rescue somebody, but fortunately for me, I don't think the resistance dude even spawns until all the Germans are already cleared out of the house. With the first guy rescued and looking no worse for wear, we get back into the car to go to the next location. We roll in blasting and then hop back out to find our ally on foot. And, unfortunately, shotguns are just too effective for house clearing to not be using in this situation. The Frenchmen we're rescuing might be triplets, but with 2 out of the 3 saved, we have to head back into the car and onto the last guy who's being held at a farm. We get to the farmhouse, which is actively burning down despite all the Germans and our captured Frenchmen staying inside of it. With the resistance members saved, we have to regroup with everyone back at the town square where we started, since apparently the Germans are counterattacking, and we somehow know about this despite gallivanting across the countryside without a cell phone in sight for the last hour. We stand and fight in the courtyard and kill what feels like 100 Germans before an armored car rolls in, which we way too calmly, mind you, decide is probably a bit of a bother. We take Isabel and flank it so that she can do the quick time event on it and place a bomb. But she must mess up her button presses or something because she's suddenly thrown 40 feet by what I think was an explosion, but there was no sound effects and there was no fireball. I pull out my shotgun to protect her body. And with a few more Germans killed, the mission ends with the help of not just an unlikely artillery strike, but literally, it doesn't make sense. This artillery strike doesn't make sense. The ending cutscene picks up with the boys putting aside their differences to mourn Isabel's death in an entirely different location and death post from how she went in-game.
I'm sorry, Marcel. She was a brave lass.
With international relations repaired between the British and the French, we fade out and take control of the Canadians again. Baron is sent away to join the Polish tank crew, who off-screen have been successful in capturing that hill.
Dangerous business. You wouldn't want any part of it.
I'm not a coward, Lieutenant. My job's to protect our radio, our only link to command and...
Now your job is to be the Poles' radio. Dismiss, Private.
We start the mission rolling into battle in a very fast-moving metal box, crossing a bridge only to be instantly ambushed and have to get back on foot to continue. Before I can dismount from the metal contraption that we're in, another Tiger tank shows up. Now, you know after Call of Duty 2 that I have beef with how often these early Call of Duties depict Tiger tanks just being around and available in combat. Based on documents compiled by historian and author Nicholas Zetterling, German armor allocation reports, I'm getting nerdy here, German armor allocation reports showed that there were approximately 2,289 tanks in the Normandy campaign, and of those 2,289 tanks, only 123 of those were Tiger tanks. Like, I get it, Tigers are cool tanks and they should have this intimidation factor, but they were scary because they were powerful and rare. And they were rare because they were complicated and expensive to make. The frequency that we end up fighting Tigers in these games just completely cheapens their impact in my mind. I'm sorry, history lesson over. We awkwardly glitch in and out of our vehicle before hovering down to the ground, and we run away from the tank behind a row of houses. As we keep moving to avoid the tank, I get jumped by another German soldier, and we start wrestling while, again, my allies are right there. Are they just eating popcorn and watching the show? I'm so annoyed by this that after throwing the man to the ground, I do mag dump his body, which is overkill. It's not right, but I did it. We catch our breath in a small room with Steve Blum, who tells us that a large part of his squad are pinned down in a fortified tavern. I start to move forward, and a German kicks the door down in front of me so hard that I almost die. We take out a wave of attacking Germans and their machine guns and get ourselves into the tavern. Despite rescuing the soldiers as intended, Lieutenant Robichaud decides that we should fortify and defend the tavern from counterattacks to make it a thorn in the German side so that our convoys can reinforce the Polish troops trying to hold the high ground. Not 1 second after we determine our course of action, the building gets smoked by mortars and the counterattack commences. We spend our time killing mortar teams that are somehow now behind us and throwing back wave after wave of infantry. Again and again, the Germans find their way into the building, and again, our Canadian bloodlust drives them back. The attack from behind the tavern fails, so somehow the Germans also try charging through our front door. We hold out as long as we can until the building is overrun, and we decide that our best option is to flee into the street we came from. Despite the pulse-pounding combat all around us, we casually pick up a crowbar and QTE some boards that are blocking a doorway rather than, I don't know, shooting them off? Blowing them up, or we could just go through the window that's right there. Anyways, the Tiger tank has found its way back to us, so we hop into a basement via a hole in the floor, and it turns out the entire basement is being used as German fuel and ammunition storage. Despite the warning that one stray bullet could blow us all up, I am able to shoot, miss, and throw grenades without consequence down here. Since we have no other means to kill the tank, we figure that if we blow up the entire city block underneath it, we should be able to push the Germans back. One more QuickTime event later, we go and hide around a corner, which honestly feels way too close to the amount of ordnance they're telling me is in this basement, and wait for the explosion to happen. The explosives don't go off right away, so Sergeant Callard, who has been with us the entire game, gets impatient and runs back to check the fuses.
If the fuse is defective, the chargers are defective, and we're all dead! Jonathan!
We wake up in the middle of the street, unsure if we were dragged from the rubble or thrown here. Regardless, Robichaud is lacking his typical bravado and mourns the loss of Callard as we stand in front of a massive crater, which demonstrates just how hugely disproportionate that plan was in dealing with one tank. We end up getting a pretty lowball promotion considering just everything that we've done, and our focus shifts back to the Polish defending Mount Ormel. We have no idea what it took to capture this mountain, or even why it's important, since all of that was done off-screen. To catch us up to speed, we are met with the World War II equivalent of Lord Elrond healing Frodo in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Taking the mace is one thing. Now we have to hold it.
We are instantly thrown into the defense of the hilltop and start outside of our tank for some reason. Beard Boy here gives us uppies so we can use the Sherman's turret to fight off, and I shit you not, 9 more Tiger tanks. Now, I feel like the Sherman's capabilities are typically undersold, but if this was actually happening, we would be so cooked. Somehow, another Tiger tank ends up on the hill behind us, so Papa pulls us out of the turret and we start a mad dash to a fallback point. There's just an overwhelming number of soldiers chasing us through our defensive points, and as soon as we get to a spot, we're almost immediately pushed back again into a fighting retreat. We link back up with our tank crew and try to hold the Germans back from a hastily set up machine gun nest. Beard Boy here sadly takes a direct shot from one of the Tiger tanks and apparently dies despite still having his name and therefore health bar completely in the green. Papa makes a plan to try and retreat further up the hill, and we work our way through trenches and tunnels as more and more Germans and Tiger tanks show up. We get into a stronger position, and Canadian Baron finally shows up with his radio. We work with Baron, using his radio to call in artillery to destroy the German tanks and hold off the infantry before any more can move up the hill. Eventually, though, we are overrun again and have to fall even further back up the hill. We intend to call in more artillery strikes with Baron, but all of the bullying has gotten to his head.
Ah, Baron, we missed you. Have a good nap, did we?
You stay out there! It's suicide!
That's dangerous business. You wouldn't want any part of it.
My job's blocking artillery strikes! I'm not running away from it! I'm not a coward, Lieutenant. My job's to protect our radio. I'm not a coward! I'm not leaving my folks! I'm not afraid! I'm not!
One of our allies then takes approximately 6 business days to get the radio off of him to try and keep using it. We run through an aid station packed full of wounded to get to the other side of the hill to then try and create an opening for the reinforcements coming our way. Everyone sees a bunch of tanks rolling up to our position and apparently have fully forgotten what German tanks look like because everyone thinks this is the Canadians coming to save us, instead of it just being so many more German soldiers and so many more Tiger tanks. 3 more of our tank crew take direct hits from the German tank cannons, and we fall back to a house on the hill. We start using the radio to call in more artillery, destroying tanks and artillery until our radio gets peppered with shrapnel, leaving us once again on our own to defend the hilltop with whatever we have left. We manage to hold out until Allied air power and the Canadians finally show up to help us. The Germans retreat and we win the day. Robichaux and Papa Jack take a few minutes to celebrate their victory, but acknowledge that the Germans in this area still aren't beaten, as they're going to try and break out and retreat through Chambois where the Americans are. So, it's back in the boots of the USA one last time for Call of Duty 3. The final mission kicks off with an overwhelming force from the German army assaulting a defensive point set up by the American. Our job is to hold out as long as possible so that reinforcements can arrive and finally finish the Germans off. We chew up an insane amount of infantry, and then the surviving German armor starts rolling in. We continue to hold the first roadblock and kill just so many dudes, while Eric Sparrow runs off to get some bazookas that we figured would be smart not to keep at our main defensive point. Huxley takes too long to get back, so we instead have to fall back to our next defensive position. Tanks continue to be pretty worthless from a threat standpoint, as we sit behind just a small layer of sandbags, and a Tiger tank parks in front of us and lets us continue to kill all of the advancing foot soldiers without any issue. Eventually, it's decided that we need to fall back into another defensive position, so we run through a hole in a house behind us. Our ally then takes 26 business days to set his gun down and give us uppies over a wall, and then we're back in the fighting around our next strong point, which is a massive cathedral. You should all know this part by heart now. Using a religious structure for military purposes is a war crime. Our own air support bombs way too close to us and starts knocking more holes in the church than were already there before. We scramble out of that spot and back into the street, and we encounter a bunch of Germans in cover at a point in the city that geographically, I just don't think they could have captured and fortified so fast. We kill no less than 100 more German troops and then get word over the radio that a friendly squad at another defensive position needs our assistance. So, we run through the wreckage to back them up. At the outskirts of town, hundreds more Germans and additional tanks are trying to worm their way in. In the midst of calling in air support to sweep them away, our radio seems to spontaneously combust, meaning that we need to mark our position the old-fashioned way with flares. Radio man Guzzo decides it's his job to get the first place, so he runs out into enemy fire to mark the targets. Guzzo gets the flares placed and then takes a bullet, wounding him right in the path of the incoming airstrike. Sergeant Dixon and I quickly run to him to pull him out of danger, which is much easier than it should be with two of the three least threatening tanks sitting right in eyesight of us. To the Germans' credit, they do not try to shoot Guzzo or Dixon while he's carrying the wounded man out of harm's way, something that I found myself very incapable of doing in Call of Duty 2. The airstrike, I guess, comes in and destroys the tanks, and we get Guzzo back to cover in safety. No sooner do we have him set down, and Dixon gets shot somewhere? The knee? The thigh? I'm really not sure. But he very, very quickly says some very cliche stuff.
McCullen.
Forget him, Dix.
McCullen told me to tell you.
You're not dying like him.
He told me to tell you. You should go to hell.
Stay with me,
But
Dix.
you're okay, Guzzo.
Dix.
You're okay.
Come on, buddy. God damn it.
And then dies. Huge bummer. Oh well, we instantly move on and run back to the other side of town to fight more Germans. Guzzo's leg is healed Wolverine style, and he's in charge now, I guess? We move through some houses, encountering another Tiger tank that seems allergic to protecting itself, and blow it up with a bazooka. We move back into the church and fight the Germans from another improbable angle. Jumping forward, we push to the outskirts on the other side of town, clearing a house full of Germans behind our allied squad, and then start shooting at advancing soldiers coming from outside the town. I literally cannot wrap my head around how or why Germans are where they are at any point in this battle. I'm like, are we holding any defensive positions at all? How are they everywhere and fortified in positions that are behind our own fortified positions? I pick up a sniper rifle and start killing mortar teams in addition to the run-of-the-mill riflemen, watching as more and more German armor trickles into position. I foolishly think that our air support's going to kill the German vehicles as they have this entire mission, but now they're nowhere to be found. So I first pick up a bazooka before I see the button prompt that says I can actually use the captured German PaK-43 anti-tank gun. Unsurprising to me, but still frustrating, the controls for the anti-tank gun are super annoying and inaccurate. Like, look at where the barrel is, where the aiming reticle is, and then look at where my shot hits. I'm just thankful that I don't have to use the PlayStation 3's motion controls to do this.
Oh.
While trying to target the vehicles, I do end up hitting a number of the foot soldiers, taking us back to our original classification of these types of guns, in that they are not proportionate uses of force against ground troops, and therefore, in my opinion, are war crimes. Give up on using that anti-tank gun for just a second to fire my last bazooka round at the armored car parked right next to me that's doing nothing while I slaughter dozens of its allies. A magical 53rd Tiger tank rolls in and I have to get back onto the Pak-43. The crosshair is magically realigned with my point of aim, but now the sensitivity on the aiming controls is going crazy, which is causing me to wave the barrel around like a drunk elephant before I finally smack that tank out of commission with essentially a point-blank shot. I sweep the gun across 6 more soldiers before seeing another tank pulling up even closer in front of me. Thankfully, putting a shell through the fender kills the entire tank, and I one-shot another full squad while the crew bails out from that wreckage. As I commit that collection of crimes, 50 more soldiers and 3 more Tiger tanks come charging over the hill, forcing me to aim and shoot wildly to push them all back. Fortunately, before the numbers can rack up even higher, Allied warplanes come back and artillery start falling and end the German attack. We hoot and we holler and we are notified by the achievement pop-up that we have won the war. We're shown dozens of surrendering Germans exiting the woods into Allied captivity and then fade over to our American squad getting filled in with replacements. Guzzo is in charge and Eric Sparrow hits one final lame-ass one-liner.
I'm Guzzo. One rule, you're no good to me dead.
What kind of pep talk was that? You want inspiration, Private? Read a poem.
We are now rolling credits, but the real question is, how many war crimes were there in Call of Duty 3? Call of Duty 3 is mercifully over, and while I didn't particularly enjoy my time with this game, I am very much looking forward to revisiting one of the greatest of all time in the series with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare next. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting this series. Please, don't forget to subscribe if you've made it this far so you don't miss future episodes. In the meantime, a playlist for this full series is here so you can get caught up on past episodes, or you can go ahead and let YouTube dish you out something over here. Be kind and do good, gamers. I'll see you again very soon.